You may be seated. We want to welcome everybody here today to the funeral for Bernard Eugene Williford Jr., also known as Bernie, or the Bug, depending on how it goes. Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, author of mercy and giver of comfort, we pray today for grace and peace for all who mourn, that casting our cares on you, we may know the consolation of your unconditional love. Guide us today as we remember Colonel Retired Bernie Williford. His death is hard for us to grasp. However, your grace envelops us. Even in the midst of our confusion and disbelief, we lean on you. It's in Jesus' most holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
This reading is from Psalm 46, verses 1 through 3. God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. And verse 10, he says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us." Now Command Sergeant Major Retired Pat Gill will come and read Colonel Williford's military biography.
Colonel Bernard E. Bernie Williford Jr. was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the regular Army in 1987, following his graduation from the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York, and received a bachelor's degree in physical geography. Colonel Williford served his first 5 years in the active Army as an infantryman with assignments in 1st Battalion, 36th Infantry Regiment, and 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Brigade, 3rd Armored Division. He served in Desert Storm, the first of his 3 deployments. After leaving active duty, he entered the North Carolina National Guard in 1993. Initially assigned to the 1st Battalion, 119th Infantry Regiment headquarters, he soon took command of Company B of the 1st of the 119th and led B Company for 26 months. He was promoted to Major in October of 2000 and was assigned for 3.5 years in the 1st of the 119th S3 Operations Section. In 1999, for nearly a year, he served a tour as the 30th Brigade Liaison Officer in Arlington, Virginia. Not long after his return to North Carolina, Colonel Williford assumed the duties of the 30th Armored Brigade Combat Team S4 Logistics Officer and was responsible for the oversight of all logistics during the historic first deployment of the 30th to Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom II. In 2006, he continued to serve in the G4 logistics community as the branch chief for both the surface maintenance and supply services sections. Following his promotion to Lieutenant Colonel, he took command of the 230th Brigade Support Battalion. He led the 230th for nearly 3 years and took them to Iraq on the 30th's second deployment to Southwest Asia and was stationed at Camp Falcon. After his 3rd combat deployment, and he returned to North Carolina, Colonel Williford assumed full-time duties as the executive officer of the 30th until 2012. Then he was assigned to the G3 Operations Officer for the North Carolina Army National Guard and promoted to the rank of Colonel. In 2014, he took command of the 113th Sustainment Brigade, a position he held until his retirement in 2016. Colonel Williford earned numerous awards during his long service, including the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star Medal with 3 oak clusters, the Meritorious Service Medal with 5 oak clusters, the Army Commendation Medal with 4 oak clusters, the Army Achievement Medal with 4 oak clusters. He also earned, through his combat deployments, the Combat Infantry Badge, the Global War on Terror Service Ribbon, and the Kuwaiti Liberation Medal. He was a graduate of the U.S. Army Airborne School and a Jungle Warfare Training Course. I would like to say I was blessed to have Colonel Williford Bug in my life and my career. My career has been successful. He played a big part in it. I was honored to be his S3 Maintenance Logistics Sergeant Major. Then later on, he followed me on to the 230th, and I was honored to be his Command Sergeant Major while he was in command. And a few years later, I turned around and he followed me again to the 113th Sustainment Brigade, and I was honored to be his CSM there for a period of time. Colonel Williford was a teacher, a mentor, and he improved everybody around him. Sometimes forcibly, but he improved those around him. He made me better, and the NCO Corps was blessed and honored to have him as a mentor. To the family, my family, deepest sympathy and condolences. He was big in stature and big in life, big personality, and we all loved him.
There were quite a few of Colonel Williford's West Point classmates that were unable to make it today. One of whom is snowed in Wyoming right now, which for a North Carolina girl is a little hard to imagine. But Denton Knapp emailed me last night and asked me to read this today. He was one of Colonel Williford's roommates at West Point. Bernie Williford first joined us at West Point in 1983. Over the next 4 years, Bernie would become our classmate and dear friend. As a cadet, Bernie was fun-loving while exercising his leadership in our company and class. He became the epitome of our 1987 class motto, "Our country we strengthen." He was an Army officer any of us could depend upon, and he served our nation for almost 3 decades. Bernie lived the West Point motto of duty, honor, country. His courage, faith, and love of life made him an incredible officer and an amazing husband and father. We will all miss his incredible personality, his smile and laughter, and his love of family and friends. Until we meet again, my friend, see you on the high ground. This reading is from a group of his brothers and their spouses from West Point, who they say, "We all love Bernie very much. When I think of Bernie, I smile. The big guy made a difference to me and for me. He inspired me to continue to drive on while struggling in academics. He stood out in any crowd, not merely by his size, but mostly from his presence. He also made me laugh, showing up for Stacy and my wedding a day late. That laugh of his just pushed us over the edge with laughter and tears for his forgetfulness. I think he wanted us to recreate the ceremony just for him. Seeing his little Abner smile just made everyone chuckle. Yet his aura also demanded one's attention. I will truly miss my brother here on earth, but I smile that Bernie Williford smile when I think we will laugh with each other again one day when our Lord calls me home. Bless Rain, Braxton, and Bernie's other children and family. Through your stressful times now and those to come, please know that we love you and our Bernie made a difference. Our country he did strengthen. I'll conclude with a cyber salute to Bernie's memory and a huge hug to his family." Now, Colonel Retired Cliff Wilkins will share some remarks.
Good afternoon. Bernie and I have been friends and served together for over 20 years. Like you, I'm devastated by his passing. However, I'm here to remember my friend and honor his memory. Bernie, where to start? Large man, loud voice, and he could talk the paint off a signpost. Once Bernie got going on a subject, you'd better find an escape route or grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and listen. If Bernie observed something that made no sense, he'd call it out, and call it out, and call it out. Often his commentary would include a sarcastic quip or two. For example, and this is an oldie but a goodie, if you'd read the operations order, you'd know what to do. Show of hands, who here has ever been on the receiving end or witnessed one of Bernie's sarcastic quips or comments? And you know what? We're all here today because we love him, we respect him, and we miss him. When I started working for Bernie Nahoski in 1997, he was exceptionally supportive of my family and me. We're forever grateful. As long as you were forthright, asked for his help when needed, and did your job, he always had your back. We had a lot of fun over the years working together. Hurricane Floyd, Fort Pickett, National Training Center, overseas deployments, and a shared passion for German beer and German food. Since retirement, we've remained in touch and gotten together on occasion. I'm very thankful for that time. Bernie, you accomplished so much in your life. Great family, great career, West Point graduate, supporter of multiple sclerosis charity, certified diver and instructor, and I could go on and on. Loyalty, selflessness, intelligent, passionate, and compassionate are but just a few words that describe you, Bernie. In closing, the world is a better place because Bernie Williford was part of it. I'm richer because I had the honor to call Bernie friend and brother. Godspeed, brother. Swamp Dragons.
Now we will have Major General Retired Beth Austin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bernie Williford and I worked together for many years in a couple of different capacities within the North Carolina National Guard. First of all, Rain, Blake, Kara, Braxton, and the rest of the Williford family. My heart hurts for all of you and for all of those here today to honor Bernie. I am also brokenhearted for the loss of my big friend. Even though we are hurting today, we will all carry on in the fact that we have wonderful memories of Bernie. Memories that will make us shed a tear with sadness, and others that will make us laugh with joy. The ones that make us laugh are the ones that Bernie wants us to concentrate on. Kara, I want to thank you for letting me know that your dad was in the hospital. Because of that, I got a chance to reach out to Rain and to Bernie. Even though we didn't get to talk, we did get to text. He knew that I was praying for him, and I know that he appreciated it. And I appreciated the fact that we were able to correspond a few times. Just this past weekend, Mike and I were at the beach with friends, and it was mentioned that Bernie had passed away. Our friend Jeff, that has nothing to do with the military or the North Carolina National Guard, made a statement. I remember Bernie. I met him several times at your house. Mike and I played golf with him in a couple of golf tournaments. Great guy, and the man could hit the hell out of a ball off the tee. Now, his short game was not that good. Jeff said that Mike tried to give Bernie some shit. Bernie shut him down real quick. Jeff said he laughed at Mike and Bernie the whole time they played golf. Bernie was a fun guy to be around, and I am so glad that we had that laugh over a fun memory to share this weekend. I've been reflecting on my memories of Bernie over the past few days. I even went back to the first time I ever met Bernie. It was at a North Carolina National Guard Association conference. Mike and Laura Sprayberry, Mike and I, and Bernie were hanging out together. You see, the Sprayberrys and the Austins were good friends, and Bernie kind of tacked on to that. I thought when I was introduced to him, man, this is one big dude. The whole weekend, Bernie was a lot of fun to hang out with. However, he seemed to be very quiet and reserved. Flash forward to the next time I met Bernie. Oh my, what a difference in personality. We were in a meeting of some kind, and the Bernie that we all came to know and love jumped out. I thought, damn, I don't want to get on his wrong side. For those of you that know me and know Bernie, you know we had three things in common. Number one was our size. Bernie was 6 feet plus, 200 pounds plus, and I'm 5'3" and 135. Our size did not matter. We were both stubborn and bullheaded. We would go toe-to-toe on an issue we did not agree upon. And yes, I did get on Bernie's wrong side a few times, and he got on mine as well. But in the end, we agreed to disagree, and we got the job done. The other commonality that we had was there were many times that we wanted to strangle each other. Thank goodness neither of us tried to do that, as I think I would have lost because I could never reach Bernie's neck unless I had a ladder, and I never had one available. The biggest and best thing we had in common was that we were both passionate about our logistics mission and the soldiers who were performing those missions, so we were able to set aside our differences while he was at the 30th BCT S4 in order to get the job done. Now, when Bernie came to work for me as a surface maintenance manager, things were different. He always agreed that I was right, and we did it my way. At least that's the way I remember it. When Bernie moved to the state headquarters to the G4 shop, there was lots of water cooler and coffee pot discussions on just how long it would take Beth Austin and Bernie Williford to kill each other. But you see, the thing was, even though we had our differences, we had a great respect for each other. He came to the G4 shop at a critical time. I was responsible for resetting the 30th BCT. I needed a great surface maintenance manager, and I knew Bernie was the right choice. We had both spent much of our careers in the BCT, and between the two of us, we knew what needed to happen. Plus, our mutual love for the BCT made us put any disagreements aside so we could do what was right for the equipment and the soldiers of the 30th. We got the brigade set, and I learned a lot more about Bernie. We became good friends. Bernie was hardworking, knew his stuff, and demanded the best performance from everyone. He also somewhat of a jokester at heart, and he loved to be a part of playing a joke on me. One notable joke had to do with a whoopee cushion or a farting cushion and my admin assistant. I had 2 lieutenant colonels, a sergeant major, and a specialist involved in that one. So I'm just going to let your imaginations go there. Needless to say, I was very upset with all of them until they wore me down, and I just sat down and laughed at myself with them. He was also a very concerned person for his fellow soldiers. One time when I was sick with severe sinus infection and was taking some strong medication, Bernie came into my office and asked if he could talk to me for a minute. I stopped what I was doing. He sat down and asked, "Ma'am, are you okay? Are things okay at home with you and Mike and the family?" I looked at him very puzzled and said, "Yes, things are fine at home. Why are you asking?" He said, "Well, I hate to tell you this, but you have been a real bitch the past couple of weeks. And we're all concerned about you." I laughed and just said, "In just the past couple of weeks?" His response was, "Well, much more than usual. Turns out those meds were having an effect on me, but they were all glad when I finished them. But the point is, Bernie and I were close enough that he could come in my office and have that conversation. Like that, because we were friends and respected each other. We had many laughs over that conversation. Bernie and I traveled a great deal around the state to National Guard Bureau and other places. Those trips to NGB were especially entertaining, as I usually had 6-foot Bernie and 6-foot Tony with me. I always entered an office with the two of them trailing behind me. I don't know why, but I think some people were intimidated when we entered the room. And we did hear several comments about Colonel Austin and her bodyguards. We usually got what we were asking for on those trips. If they felt intimidated, that was their problem, not mine. We were just looking after the North Carolina National Guard. On other trips, I got to know Bernie the dad. Blake and Kara, he loved you both with all his heart. We had many conversations about you. He was a very proud dad, to say the least. I would see that when I would see all of you together at different events. Kara, it was especially special when you were your dad's date to the sustainment ball. He was very proud to have you on his arm. Thank you for doing that for your dad. Braxton, your dad was so excited over your arrival. He loved you, and he was very excited to be an old dad, as he described himself to me. Rain, we were all thankful when Bernie found you, or you reconnected with each other. The love of his life. You managed to put a calm over Bernie like we had never seen. He was, until the day he died, truly in love with you, as I know you were with him. I was extremely honored to preside over Bernie's retirement ceremony. I had fun telling stories about our history together, and Bernie had fun telling his version of those stories. People told me that we should go on the road together as a stand-up comic act. It saddens me to know I can't banter back and forth with my good friend any longer, or hear, "That's bullshit, ma'am." Rain, I will let you know that I have one huge regret. You and Bernie invited Mike and I down to visit you many times in Pine Knoll Shores. Bernie promised fishing, boat rides, sunsets, and a great time. I'm sorry we never made that happen, because I know we would have made some great memories. Lesson learned, people. Don't let life get in the way of spending time with your friends, because you never know when you will never have the opportunity again. To Bernie, thank you for all the arguments that kept me on my toes, and all the laughs that made life a little lighter, but most of all, thanks for the friendship. There is a miracle of friendship that dwells within your heart, and you don't know where it happens or where it gets its start, but the happiness it brings you will always bring a special lift, and you realize that friendship is life's most precious gift. Rest in peace, my friend. You will truly be missed by me and so many more.
Now we will have Major General Retired Greg Lusk.
My name is Greg Lusk, and I was a fellow brother in arms with Bernie Williford. I was a fellow swamp dragon, a fellow soldier of Old Hickory, and a fellow citizen soldier with the North Carolina National Guard. And, as can be witnessed here, one of his many, many friends who are gathered here either physically or in spirit. I admit that I haven't laid eyes on Bernie in a couple years. But you know, that never concerned me, because surely our paths were going to cross again, either at the Joint Forces headquarters during retiree homecoming day, or perhaps at a 30th Infantry Division Association reunion. But we knew our paths were going to cross. And in my wildest imagination, I would have never guessed that this is the way that we would have reunited. You know, it's a simple truth, and I think I can summarize it by saying that this isn't what we should be doing today. This beautiful autumn day in North Carolina with the beautiful blue sky. We shouldn't be here mourning the early passing of Bernie Williford. Instead, we should be celebrating life and enjoying and getting caught up on other stories. We should be hearing about Braxton as he progresses through grade school, and we should be learning about Blake and his successes in the Department of Defense and his career in carrying or truck driving, and we should be celebrating a few more anniversaries as well. We should be recounting some successful deep sea dives and some fishing trips as well, some boat outings. Those are the things that we should be doing. But yet we find ourselves today mourning the passing and joining together to bid him a final farewell. See, in the mid-1990s, Bernie Williford wore a combat patch on his right sleeve. He got that from his 3rd Armored Division during Desert Storm, and in the National Guard at the time, he was a unicorn. He's a guy that had been there and done that. Something that we all in uniform, all of us that had served, had trained and prepared for, not necessarily yearned for, but something we expected, but yet he had been there and he had done that. All of us would lean in whenever Bernie would tell us a story of his support platoon days going across the deserts in the Middle East during that conflict. He was seasoned. He'd been to the big show, and he had many TTPs, lessons, and stories to tell. Perhaps through all of those stories that he would share with us, however, what resonated the most, perhaps right now in hindsight, was that that's the way Bernie lived his life. We all knew that he was tenacious, and he demonstrated a relentless toughness and a dogged determination to accomplish any mission, regardless of the obstacles or the challenge or the sacrifices demanded. And although he was junior in rank, to me, I never looked upon Bernie as a subordinate. I, like many others that had the chance to serve with Bernie, knew that he was a combat multiplier. He was a guy that when he put his finger on the scale, it tipped in your favor. The odds shifted dramatically to your side. If he was on your team, you had a renewed sense of confidence that you were going to succeed in whatever endeavor. Whether any of you knew him as that selfless hero who back during Hurricane Floyd, in the middle of the night, waded through rising flood waters to rescue people off the porches of houses, people that he didn't know. Or whether you, as many hands have already shown us, personally experienced, witnessed, or been on the receiving end, or in my case, refereed some of the confrontations that Bug may have had with any of his unsuspecting staff officers or commanders, all of us knew him as a principled and passionate man. Some may say that he lacked a little bit of tact in some circumstances. And perhaps he was overbearing in others. But he defended his idea, particularly if that idea centered around how somebody interpreted what was written in the operation order. However, nobody ever questioned his motivation. Nobody ever doubted where he came from. I have many fond and vivid memories of refereeing a Bernie tirade. One of those heated moments, perhaps on the verge of physical confrontation with other staff officers or commanders. His imposing size, well, heck, compared to most of us, he was imposing. Because of his imposing size, however, he did add a little additional stress to his would-be victim, if you would. And I can't help but remember and find myself laughing of a particular instance while deployed to Iraq the very first time, that while in the middle of one of our very early on brigade commander updates, Bernie locked horn with another staff officer. I quickly grabbed hold of the door of a broom closet and shoved both of them inside the broom closet and said, "Solve this, keep your voices down." It was only when that door closed that I realized what a mistake I had made. Because now that other person had no way of escaping, and Bernie consumed a vast majority of the space inside of that broom closet. It was undoubtedly an unfair advantage to Bernie. However, that particular incident, like so many others, once it was over, it was indeed over. Calmer heads prevailed, and it was business and it was back to work as usual. And many times, It was like it never happened in the first place. It was just simply a very passionate debate. We all experienced and grew after being bugged. And speaking of his larger-than-life frame, anybody here who may have ever witnessed Bernie Williford climbing out of the hatch of a turret on a Bradley fighting vehicle had a sight to behold and had it permanently etched in their memories. You might envision it as something like a vacuum seal fit. As Bernie would seemingly wear that Bradley around his waistline like some people might try to squeeze into a pair of Speedos. He was a prolific and proficient tactician and a logistician. You've heard that. He was a great leader and a mentor who possessed an integrity that was beyond any reproach. Bernie mentored me, and I oftentimes sought his mentorship. Many times throughout my career, as I was about to move on to another position, I would seek Bernie out and ask him to give me a hot wash. You know, the proverbial, give me the 3 sustains. Keep doing the 3 things I need to improve upon. I knew I necessarily wouldn't like the answers, but I knew I could always count on the cold hard facts from somebody that I trusted and somebody that I revered. And Bernie delivered in every instance. And because of those heart-to-heart conversations and that mentoring, that time he spent with me, I became a better officer, a better leader, and I became better in life in general. Yeah, I was saddened, very much saddened, when Bernie had decided to retire from the North Carolina National Guard, because I knew that we had lost a combat multiplier. We had lost that ultimate decider, that shift of odds in our favor. But I personally had lost a trusted mentor, a close confidant, a respected advisor, and a very good friend. And I'm even more saddened today realizing that Bernie's not going to be with us anymore on this earth. But I do take solace in the fact that knowing that he is already on the high ground and he's waiting for all of us to join him, and we'll see you again sometime soon. Your job on this earth is done, Bernie. Continue the mission.
And now we will hear from Blake Williford.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank y'all for all coming out. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Blake, Bernie's oldest son. For those of you who do know me, last time you probably saw me, I was a little bit shorter, probably had a little bit less facial hair going on. While I love to stand up here and talk about how an amazing man my dad was, we would simply be here all afternoon. So I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, just the way he would have wanted. I am truly honored and impressed to see the amount of people's lives that my dad was a part of or impacted. He was one hell of a leader and a hell of a father who taught me a lot of important things, but most importantly, he taught me a strong work ethic, which he demonstrated till the day that he passed away. No matter what stage of life that my dad was in, he was always working hard to make sure that his family was taken care of and that the mission, no matter what it was, got accomplished. I sometimes like to think that my dad lived by the motto, to die living, which is exactly what he did. And while our time with him may not have been as long as we would have liked it to have been, he made sure to make every moment count and lived his life to the fullest, which is exactly what he would have wanted us to do with our lives from this day moving forward. And while it is extremely painful for me to say goodbye to the most important man in my life since I can remember, I will honor his memory by living my life to the fullest, just like he would have wanted me to. So Dad, I love you, and I'll see you again someday soon. Y'all have a nice afternoon.
We've heard so many stories already of how Bernie Williford exemplified a life of service. The numerous ways he lived this out. Growing up, he served as an acolyte in his church. He was in the Boy Scouts and eventually served as a scoutmaster. And when it came time for college, he chose the United States Military Academy at West Point and played football. This value of service was instilled early on in his family, by his family. His family was the center of his world. He loved so much spending time with them, out on the boat, camping, geocaching, building gingerbread houses with Kara, his family was the center of his world. In fact, his first dive student was his sister, Lou. He taught her how to breathe underwater in his hot tub. When Kara decided to become a truck driver, Bernie sought out one of his soldiers, Lee Tibbetts, who was doing that career, because he wanted to make sure he could guide her accordingly. Colonel Williford always made sure his family was taken care of. You've also heard stories today from his military family. Through his almost 3 decades of service to our country, he impacted everybody he came in contact with. I was his chaplain at the 230th Brigade Support Battalion, and during his last deployment to Iraq. I'm still convinced that they always put my office or my desk right close to his, so that when he got done with folks, they didn't have too far to stumble, so I could help take care of them. You know, as his chaplain, we had a unique relationship. In the Army, the chaplain answers directly to the commander, unlike the other staff officers, so he was directly my boss. So I advised him on issues with our soldiers and their morale and their welfare, among other things. But as a good chaplain, I also had to find ways to take care of my commander. And I learned early on that when he was irritated, peanut M&Ms would calm him down. When we went to Camp Shelby, I got a 56-ounce bag of them peanut M&Ms and kept them on my desk. However, he did throw me a loop when we went to Iraq and he gave up chocolate. Thankfully, red Twizzlers had the same effect. There was one thing I learned about my boss early on and has been alluded to here today. His volume was directly proportional to how much he cared about a situation. And let's just say he cared a lot. He worked hard to make sure all the soldiers under his command were taken care of and motivated to achieve excellence. This week, I've spent so much time on the phone and on Facebook hearing the numerous stories of the way he impacted people's lives. Now, it was not always a pleasant lesson at the time, but in the end, he helped so many people become a better soldier or a better officer, but always a better person. He inspired one of his drivers, then Specialist Washington, to go to officer candidate school and become an officer. When we were overseas, we had married couples that were deployed with our battalion that were on different bases. He made sure that at least once a month they got to go visit their spouse. Even our paralegals that served with him talked about how fair and equitable he made sure he was, even when he had to discipline soldiers. Yesterday I was talking to one of our convoy commanders from Iraq, and she remembered coming back to the FOB from a convoy that had been in a hell of a sandstorm. And when she got back to the FOB, to our base, Colonel Williford had waited up to make sure that convoy made it back and to make sure he got to lay eyes on his soldiers and make sure they were safe before he would go to bed. When my cancer came back in 2011, I called to tell Colonel Williford, and in his gruff way he said, "You got to get better, chaplain." And I went, "Oh, okay, yes, sir." He's like, "No, I'm about to ask Rain to marry me and you have to do the wedding." Roger that, sir. That was Bernie's way of saying, "I love you, chaplain. I care about you." And I could go on all day with stories like this of how he took care of people. Those of us who served under him were better for having to go to him and stand up to him and say, "Sir, this is what needs to happen." It made us more courageous officers. And we all went on to follow on assignments with new bosses who may or may not have appreciated that courage that Colonel Williford put in us. But we were better for it. And we were able to take those lessons and make that impact on the Guard reach even further. Colonel Williford leaves a legacy and an impact on this world that will never go away. He also leaves a void that no one will ever fill. And that is the grief and the loss that we are feeling today. Death impacts everybody differently, but our reaction to it is often conditioned in the way at which it comes. If death comes as we slowly wind things down at the end of a long life, it often comes as a welcome guest. If death comes after years of a long, drawn-out illness, it may come as an angel of mercy. However, when it comes unexpectedly, as it does today, we are left shocked and confused. It's too soon. It's too sudden. There just wasn't enough time. 56 is way too young. And yet, as we have heard, Bernie Williford packed so much life into those years. More than most of us will in our time that we're allotted. He didn't waste a single bit of it. And if he could, I believe that is the lesson he would want us to take forward from this day. Life is brief. Live it to the fullest. Seek to be of service to those around you. Look out for your family and your friends, just like he did. Maya Angelou said, "A great soul serves everyone all the time. A great soul never dies. It brings us together again and again." Bernie Williford brought us together here today. His memory will live on in each of us and will never die. He will continue to inspire us to lives of service as we move forward. We are grieving today, but Psalm 46 reminds us that God is our refuge and our strength. God is our source of hope. He is where we find a way to move forward, holding our memories of Bernie close and living that life of service just as he would want us to. May Bernie Williford's soul and the souls of all the departed, through the mercies of God, rest in peace. And may the grace and peace of God go with us as we move forward in service, faith, and love. This concludes our service.